I guess I don't need to really talk about the CS with you guys because you you know what it is. You own them. So we'll start with this one. Yeah. So this is a McLaren F1 powered by BMW. It was built to go race at Le Mans by BMW Motorsport back in 1996. It was, let me back up, in 1995, a McLaren F1 won Le Mans. It was a privateer team with some back alley help from McLaren, and they won overall. It's the last time that a production-based car has won Le Mans. In 1996, BMW wanted to go back to Le Mans to win it for BMW. So they wanted to do a two-car team, and they asked for sponsorship from BMW North America and BMW France, BMW UK. In the end, one car was sponsored by BMW North America, the other car by BMW France, BMW UK. So you've probably seen the livery where it varies in the rear. One has the Union Jack and the French flag on it, and ours has the Stars and Stripes. They did two qualifying races, one in England and one at Le Mans, and then raced at Le Mans. The car came in 8th place overall. It was as high as 3rd for a while, and then it had a punctured radiator, which kind of took it out of action for a little while and pushed us back. After Le Mans, the car was part of the sponsorship deal. Was the car would come to BMW North America. So we got one of them. BMW UK got one as well. They sold theirs. We kept ours, and here it is. All these years later, right here. Looking very pretty because it's going on the lawn at Pebble Beach on Sunday. So the engine in this, of course, is a BMW 6-liter, 600 horsepower in race trim, and mounted at the rear. One of the most glorious sounding engines ever. And I'll give you a little fun fact on this particular car. Let's walk to the rear. This is the Team Bugazzi cars, who are the team that ran it for BMW Motorsport. Was the only team that had blue valve covers, and it was just meant to psych out the other McLarens in the field because it was the factory team. They thought we had a special engine, but it was really only blue valve covers. But a wonderful car. It was one of the drivers was Danny Sullivan, Mr. Spin and Win at the Indy 500. He was by here a couple of days ago saying how he really enjoyed driving this car at Le Mans. His favorite was driving it at night. He says he loves to drive at night, so he did most of the night driving for it. Unfortunately, it didn't win, but we're super fortunate to still have this in the collection. So for $1 million investment initially, we have a car that's worth a little bit more than that at this point.
Dude, how often? When was the last time you took it out to run?
We run it once a year. The last time it ran really in anger was here, and 2 years ago. John Edwards drove it and put on quite a show.
And then he decided to hang it up, so he drove his car and said, "That's it.
That's it. I don't need to drive anymore." Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, let's go over to the CSL. So we're on the eve of the 50th anniversary of BMW North America. BMW North America was incorporated March 15th, 1975. And the architect behind that was Bob Lutz of automotive fame in America. He spent 3 years at BMW, but he did a lot of good stuff while he was there. Part of what he wanted to do was set up a subsidiary in the US so that BMW controlled its destiny in the market rather than dealing with an importer. In order to start marketing in the US, he decided racing was the most cost-effective way. At that time, people thought BMW stood for British Motor Works. So the banner on the windshield always said Bavarian Motor Works. And the rest is history. Car very similar to this, not this car, but this is one of the 5 that raced. won Sebring 6 days after BMW was incorporated, and there was a very dominant season for the cars. They won here a few days later, a couple of months later, and went on to really good season, and really established BMW as a contender in the U.S. market. The engine in the car is called an M49. It's the first 4-valve head on inline 6, 3.5 liters, and this one puts out about 430 horsepower on the dyno right now. Kugelfischer fuel injection, and 5-speed transmission, dogleg behind it. After this, the next race car that BMW Motorsport produced was the M1. The reason they decided to develop the M1 is Jochen Nerposch said that to convert a CS into a race car costs about 500,000 Deutschmarks to convert it, whereas the M1 was about 150,000 Deutschmarks. So it was a much more cost-effective race car, and its potential was much greater. So let's go over to the M1. So the second race car that BMW Motorsport developed was this car. It was being developed for Group 4 and Group 5 racing, but it went through some problems. Lamborghini was supposed to build it for us. It didn't work out. Lamborghini went bankrupt. The tooling and the jigs and all our parts had to be taken out in the middle of the night, shipped to Bauer, so that we could resume production. So it was a difficult time. By the time the 400 cars were built, needed for homologation, the rules were gone. So quick thinking by Nerposch was developing the Pro Car program, which was hugely popular because it was televised worldwide along with the Formula One races of the time. It was very entertaining racing because there's lots of hitting and bumping. It was like NASCAR, European NASCAR if you like, all with equally prepped cars. So that it turned out to be a success, and the cars are very valued today. This particular one started life as a pro car. If you look in the registry, it will list it as a pro car, but it was converted to an IMSA endurance racer. So it has a wider rear track, wider rear fenders, and a quick fueling system in it. So
How many pro cars exist?
I think they all exist, but I don't remember the number. I seem to think it's 20 something, 26 maybe, but I don't remember, sorry. So the engine in this is the famous M88, which was the development of the M49. And we still hadn't gotten to the S numbers yet, right, for engines. It's still an M. So come to the back. It's still a 3.5 liter inline 6, but this one develops about 470 horsepower. And one of the most glorious sounding engines. Not quite as good as the F1, but it's really a wonderful engine to hear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yesterday you were flying by.
And from inside the car, it's fantastic. Yeah. All right, let's go to E92, the last one in our group here.
Every time I see Greg, he's driving around a golf cart, sitting here on the chair. You're hustling everywhere. What's going on? Oh, he's straightening.
So I know some of you saw this when it was racing to start with. Yeah. This one is all within our life cycle, our lifespan. But this was a real moonshot car. It is super advanced in so many different ways. And it was a car that was a factory racer. Cost is no object. It's got to be done right. And it brought a lot of new technology to GT racing. The engine is based on the street engine, the S65. This is called a P65. Differences are it doesn't have Valvetronic, it doesn't have Vanos, it doesn't need them because it's either full throttle or off throttle. It's lower and further back because it has a dry sump. The sump is in the rear of the car. Everything is pushed rearward. So as the street car has a 50-50 weight distribution, this is more 58-44. 42. And it's a transaxle car. So the transmission, rear axle is all at the rear, built by X-Track, one big unit. All the auxiliaries are on there as well, alternator, power steering pump, all that kind of stuff. It's a master at airflow. You see a number of airflow pieces in here. Radiator exits that go over the hood. These are cooling air for the driver. These little snorkels here are the intake for the engine. and then there's some on the side for oil coolers at the rear. There's one right at the crux of the mirror there that cools the exhaust so that the driver doesn't get as warm. This car has air conditioning. It was required by the rules because it had to have side windows. And the reason there's a bulkhead behind the seat is so that we don't have to cool as big an area. I'll show you one thing on the interior which I think is kind of cool, and it shows some of the progression. If you've done a track day and put a GoPro in your car, you'll notice the seat moves quite a bit, the backrest. It doesn't matter if it's a carbon shell or anything, they move. This seat does not move. It is bolted on the back, it's bolted on the ground. There is absolutely no movement. So you have incredible fidelity. As a driver, you know exactly what it's doing. If you understand the car, if you feel for the car, you're all set. But in order to accommodate different size drivers, it has a movable pedal box. You can see it down in there. You're also sitting in the rear passenger footwell, way down low, which seems really odd. And when you first sit in the car, it seems like you're really low and really far back. Yeah. But once you start rolling, it's great. The downside is you can't see down the corkscrew at all.
No.
You're aiming for the tops of the tree and
aim for the trees and hope you land in the right spot.
That's it. Yeah, Connor, why don't you say a few words about the car, because you've spent some time in this one.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorites. I would say top 2 to drive out of all the BMWs I've driven. It's as
what's the other top one?
I mean, that's my ultimate favorite.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Yeah. And second, the LMR is probably second, and this is like a very close second to that car. So, but yeah, this car, the first time I drove it was here at Laguna Seca. As Tom said, from the engineering wise, it was like a huge step up from all the previous GT cars. And when you drive it, you really notice all that. When the drivability and the way it naturally just does everything you want it to is what you really first notice about it. It's very easy to drive, I find, and it's also easy to go fast in it. It's easy to find the limit of where it is. It's not one of those cars. I've driven a lot of race cars that it's hard to kind of drive on that edge, and this car, I feel like it gives you a lot of confidence to build up to that. Has a lot of rear stability, which again goes to that rear distribution he spoke about. And systems-wise, it was kind of a big step up as well in terms of traction control, all these type of things as well, air conditioning. This was kind of like that first generation of GT car where it started to become, less of a GT and more of a proper, almost like a prototype race car before prototypes became as complex as they are now. One of the things I like most about it is the engine, the way it matches the grip level of what this car can produce. It matches it extremely well, and when you accelerate out of the low-speed corners, you get a little bit of wheel spin, which is why you obviously have the traction control, but like the torque level of the engine matches the grip level of the tire very well. So again, it goes back to that drivability factor. You're not worried that you're always going to be losing the rear. it just perfectly matches what the car is capable of doing, which is something that all the little things that went into designing the whole car, right? Like having too much power and just wheel spinning all the time doesn't really produce lap time. They knew that, and they were able to match this power level to the tires. At the time, they were Dunlop. On the car's Michelin now. And actually, during that era was a big like tire war era, which I wasn't part of it, but I heard plenty of stories where like different tracks, they'd run 4 different compounds on the car. They'd have a soft left front, a medium right front, a super soft right rear, all depending on the track. So that was a pretty special time that this car went through as well. And obviously it has all the accolades and the championships to prove that it was quite a piece of machinery.
This particular chassis is chassis 1101. It won the ALMS driver, manufacturer, team, and Michelin Green X for efficiency trophy in 2011. It won the 12 Hours of Sebring in 2011 and 2012. So this is the car with the most history, the best provenance of the 4 cars that we have.
We have 2 of them, right?
We have 3 of this era, and we have the pre-LCI, if you like. We don't call them LCIs in race cars, but we have the first gen. You can tell the first gen, it's the Joy car if you've seen it, and it has a sequential shifter, which we weren't allowed paddles until 2011. So this was the first BMW factory race car with paddle shift.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to remember last night, is they did this swap over during this.
Yeah, and there was a major development between the 2009, 2010 car and then this one. You mentioned traction control, and this is for those that aren't professional racers. This does not have stability control, right? Like your street car has. It's not even MDM. It's traction, only traction. So you can totally spin if you're not ready for it. But if you're using it properly, and this one's really easy. I think the Z4 is even easier because you hear it better. But you come into the corner, you get to the apex, and you have to have enough commitment to go at least 3/4 throttle or full throttle, and then the traction control will work. If you're at half throttle, it's not there for you. You're on your own. So if you go full throttle like he would, it will traction control, and then you have to counter steer out, and it'll give you the best exit. It takes a lot of commitment to get to that point.
Or just be dumb like me. Just hit the throttle pedal and trust it's going to stick.
But once you've learned to trust it, it's fantastic.
Very easy.
But
takes a few laps to get there.
It takes a few laps to get there, yeah.
But nowadays, I mean, I find when I've driven the M3 road cars on track, the adjustable TC in that is
it's
so impressive.
So impressive, yeah.
I haven't, at least when I drove it at Sonoma, I never even went. I think I was on like 7 or something.
Yeah.
Like, going any lower than that was already quite a bit of movement. So, but it's impressive to see how much you can adjust it, the range you have. How over the years that's all trickled into the road cars, which is really nice.
Road cars, So that's it. That's our tour.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No problem.
Enjoy the rest of the day.